There are people who spend years convincing doctors that they're dying, not because they want money, not because they're seeking drugs or trying to get out of work. They willingly endure painful tests, invasive procedures, surgeries, and hospitalizations simply because being a patient feels more comfortable than being who they are. Physicians have documented cases of people who've contaminated their own wounds, injected themselves with bacteria, and endured dozens of unnecessary procedures in pursuit of an illness that never existed. Some accumulated so many surgeries that their bodies became a roadmap of scars. Others spent decades moving from hospital to hospital, reinventing themselves every time. And when the internet arrived, many discovered they no longer needed hospitals at all. They could create entire lives online, complete with terminal illnesses, supportive family members, dramatic medical crises, and even their own deaths. Today, we're talking about factitious disorder, one of the strangest diagnoses in psychiatry, and one that forces us to confront a question that most of us would rather avoid. How powerful is the human need to be seen? Welcome, strangers. Welcome to Strange Mind. I'm Dr. Amy Busing.
I'm Viking Cat Lady.
And as usual, I would like to remind you to follow and rate the podcast or subscribe and follow us on all social media.
Yes. Rate the fucking podcast.
Listen to Viking Cat Lady. So today we're talking about factitious disorder imposed on self. And this is one that's difficult to categorize because it's not psychosis. And it's not deception, and it's not about obvious external gain. So it's basically a condition where a person intentionally fabricates or produces illness symptoms, not for money or legal benefit, but for the psychological experience of being treated as sick. And once you start to understand it, you realize that these people feel most at home in hospitals.
Oi.
Yeah, not me. Okay, so we're calling it factitious disorder imposed on self is really long, but the reason for calling it that is that there is factitious disorder imposed on others. And this was previously called Munchausen's and Munchausen's by proxy. And you've heard of that, I'm sure, from the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case and those cool movies. Was it Patricia Arquette?
I think, yes.
Yeah,
I didn't watch it.
So good.
I didn't watch it.
You should watch it. That's a really good one. So yes, it was first called Munchausen's by Richard Asher, who was a British physician, and that was in 1951. But it was written about as early as the 2nd century. A Greek physician named Galen wrote about patients who appeared to feign illness for attention, even back then. And then in 1843, a Scottish physician, Hector Gavin, first used the term factitious disease, and that was about people who made up sympathy or made up illness for sympathy or for attention. And then in the 1930s, the psychiatrist Carl Menninger described patients who seemed to undergo unnecessary medical procedures for other gain. And he was the dude who co-founder of the Menninger Clinic. But Asher's paper in 1951 was when they first identified that there's a specific pattern to this. So there's dramatic fabricated illnesses or produced.
And when you say produced, you mean?
Making themselves sick.
On purpose.
Yes.
Like doing physical things.
Yes. They wander from hospital to hospital. They have elaborate medical histories. They're willing to undergo procedures. And they have a striking tendency to deceive medical professionals. So Asher took the term Munchausen's from this dude named Baron Munchausen, who was an actual 18th century German nobleman who served in the military. He was famous for his tall tales, so I took an example of one. In this one, he claimed that he climbed aboard a cannonball that was shot into enemy territory, and he rode the cannonball into enemy territory to get like some intelligence. And then when things started getting dicey, he jumped on a cannonball going back the other way and rode it home.
That dude sounds fun.
Yeah, I know. I want to hang out with him. So understandably, like the term idiot savant, modern psychiatry's moved away from Munchausen's because it could be seen as mocking, because obviously
He was just a...
Yeah, he was a goof.
He was a chip. Yeah.
So it's also, it talks about the storyteller as opposed to the actual disorder. So the disorder is factitious disorder now. So let's talk about the difference between factitious disorder and malingering. Malingering is when someone fakes illness for external reward. So for money, drugs, legal advantage, time off work. And that's what I meant to ask you. Do you have any crazy calling out of work stories?
I do not.
No, you're such a good girl.
Either
that or you just use the normal. I'm sick.
Well, I've been self-employed for so long.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
So we have a friend named Bob, and I was going to tell you that we're going to invite him on the show one time because he is a mental health professional as well, who I'm sure has some interesting stories to tell. And before his life as a mental health professional, he owned restaurants. And he told me so many funny stories about people calling in. And on this one occasion, he said that somebody called in and said they had a flat tire. And they sent a photo, and the photo looked sus. So he went on reverse Google Images, and it was a stock photo.
Of course it was.
Of that.
You can't get away with anything.
Right.
Now, because of Google, once Google reverse
so
image
true.
came out. Sorry.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about a case later on today where I think reverse Google Images would have changed everything. But yeah, and when you're lying, just say less. There's no need to send the picture.
Right.
Right.
Don't add the...
Fun tip.
Right.
Okay, so with factitious disorder, the reward is internal, meaning it's psychological and identity-based. So instead of trying to get something from the system, they're trying to identify with being a patient, because a patient is someone who's cared for, someone who we all feel concerned about, and who doesn't need to justify needing help. So like some of the disorders we've talked about, it's also extremely rare. There's only about 455 published cases across decades of literature, but obviously it's super underdiagnosed because most cases are not identified. They just kind of go under the radar. And especially now with the internet, it's even harder.
Why?
It's like people are not going to ever admit to this, even when they're called out. So you can't even write it up as a case, even if, say, you do identify, this person might be, I think the expert in the field, his name is Mark Feldman, Dr. Mark Feldman, he was saying that he estimates only about 15% of people will fess up, even if directly confronted with evidence. So people, once you're in a lie.
Especially that kind of lie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably pretty embarrassing to admit that you've been making all that up. And then also, like doctors, they just take it at face value because, the assumption is you're sick.
Yeah.
You're not actually making
You're
yourself
not making,
sick. Yeah.
Right.
Which brings us to our first case. And this is a case, it was presented by Mark Feldman, who I was talking about. And he de-identified the case, which means that they're not the exact details about this patient because this was an actual patient. But when I have to redact a case for a presentation, I don't change the severity of the case. So you can probably assume that this case is pretty right on. It's just the details are slightly different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Nellie was institutionalized when she was in elementary school because she burned her house down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting that in elementary school.
Yeah, not off to the best start.
Oh.
She said that she thought setting the fire would bring her family together.
Well, now you're all together in one hotel room.
Yeah, you're very close. Yeah, it probably worked that way.
Jesus.
Yeah. So as a teen, she started causing chemical burns on her arms with oven cleaner, and she drank juice mixed with kitchen cleansers. And then the paper I'm reading said her self-harm escalated into full-blown pathology when she was 18. And I'm thinking she was drinking Capri Sun with Windex.
Yeah, where you been? Where you been?
Full-blown at that point. Okay, but anyway, at 18, she was in a car accident, which it's was it an accident?
Probably not.
Yeah. Or did she just drive into something? So she was hospitalized. And at that time, she suddenly discovered how much unconditional love she received when she was recovering. So after that, most of her attention focused on injuring herself so she could get back in that hospital. So she exposed herself to bitter cold and became frostbitten. She swallowed detergents and she added blood to urine samples to cause abnormal test results. Over the years, she was hospitalized 30 to 40 times, had countless surgeries and diagnostic procedures, and was prescribed hundreds of medications. She even dropped out of college because she was so busy being sick. She was forced to declare bankruptcy because her medical bills totaled more than $400,000.
I mean,
Yeah.
what?
And this last part, they said she got the bills when she had no health insurance. And I'm like, if a baby grand piano fell on my head, I would avoid going to the ER because my deductible is so high.
Right. But this bitch.
Who can afford to go to the hospital all the time? Who has a deductible that low?
Well, that just shows you how.
Yeah, they're committed. Absolutely committed. Okay, so eventually Nellie's hazardous behavior caught up with her. She injected her bladder with drain cleaner and had to have her bladder removed.
Well, bitch, you know what?
Good grief. She had to wear an external urinary bag for life. And that didn't even stop her. She went on to inject feces into her bloodstream and went into septic shock. And I guess at that point, she's in the ICU and she really thinks she's going to die. So she fessed up. And the paper goes on to say that when she confessed, she lost the support of her family and friends. I'm like,
You don't say.
who was supporting her to begin? Like at this point, I'm like, dude, what is up?
How did she not accidentally kill herself long before that
Right.
with all the dumb shit
I know.
she was?
Totally miraculous that she still lived.
Really?
Well, so she ends up reaching out for help, spends years in psychotherapy, becomes a born-again Christian, and now she leads a happy and productive life with a urinary bag.
Sure, no biggie.
As a reminder. So listen to this. She goes back to school. She's named Employee of the Year. Guess what her job is?
Please don't tell me it's something like in a hospital or...
She went on to get an honorary medical degree from Cornell.
No, fuck off. She did not.
No, but really, she becomes a healthcare assistant.
Doing what?
She knew the ins and outs. You know, hopefully not urology, but yeah. Or maybe, hopefully, I don't know. She knows all the...
Maybe she's in a shrink's office.
Maybe. Okay, so obviously factitious disorder is very difficult to detect, but here's the pattern. So a patient will present with some sort of crisis. Usually it's like anaphylaxis, like some sort of allergic reaction or a seizure or respiratory failure. Every episode's treated as real because the doctors assume, hey, this is real. They stabilize the symptoms. But after a while, a pattern starts happening where some stuff stops adding up. So diagnostic tests might not match the severity of what they're reporting, or people start looking through the records. But the craziest part about this is that by the time somebody actually does identify that somebody has this, they're already actually sick from all the shit they've been doing.
Yeah.
So it's like all the people start off manufacturing symptoms, but now they're genuinely sick because of infections, complications from procedures, side effects and medications, and just like the general damage that's accumulated from doing all this stuff.
It just doesn't seem, I don't know.
So that's the paradox. It's that the patient is creating an illness and becomes genuinely ill from creating it.
Yeah.
So we always talk a little bit about the neuroscience, but there is no actual neurological signature for factitious disorder. It's more of what people see comes up in early childhood. And in most of the cases that they've identified, there's some sort of abuse or neglect. So the child is generally ignored when they're well, but cared for when they're sick. So over a while, they get that association. And I don't know about you, but I was definitely... had some special treatment when I was sick. I had, every time I was sick, my grandmother would pull out this canister she had that had cinnamon mixed with sugar. And then I would get toast with butter, and just basically sugar.
And cinnamon. Yeah, it's called cinnamon toast. It's amazing.
So it's a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing.
I thought it was just some weird thing.
No. You toast the bread, butter, cinnamon, sugar, and then my mom used to broil it for us. Ooh. That wasn't necessarily a treat when we were sick. But it was definitely an occasion like that was not.
Emily Kroll with the broiling step. My grandmother probably didn't even toast it. It was probably just cold slathered butter with some sugar like here.
Chef Emily.
And then some ginger ale for good measure. Because it was like, ginger ale's for when you're sick. Like
that's when we got ginger ale. That's also a signature. Yeah.
But it's like, because ginger helps,
I don't know.
They assume that Schweppes is going to have the same
real
effect.
Ginger either.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Who knows?
Here's some high fructose corn syrup.
Oh, no, wait. We would get Sprite and ginger ale. That's what we were allowed, Sprite and ginger ale. Right. But then it was, cartoons on the couch all day.
That was like a folie à familia.
A what?
A folie à familia.
That French accent is so bad.
It's like a little Italian. Because it's like we're taught to believe that these things help with sickness, but like bread is not. Like bread's not necessarily good for you when you're sick.
No, I mean.
Anyway, whatever. We digress.
Sorry.
Okay, so suffering becomes associated with attention. Being unwell becomes associated with being important. So from a neuroscience perspective, this is all, it makes sense. We're getting any sort of reward system is going to come along with care and concern and attachment. So I guess it's to the point is like, how bad is your situation that the benefit of that reward is going to outweigh being sick and in pain,
And just feeling terrible, right. Like, and being in extreme pain in some cases.
Yeah, some of these are really bad. So most people meet these needs through relationships, community, work, wine, pets. And then some people meet these needs through being sick.
Ooh, no thanks.
So there's a heavy correlation between people with factitious disorder and personality disorders, especially borderline and histrionic traits. And we're going to talk more about personality disorders in another episode. But for now, what you need to take away is in these specific personality disorders, you see an unstable sense of identity. So like, who am I if I'm not sick or I'm not in crisis? Difficulty regulating self-worth internally. And then relying on external feedback. So attention, care, urgency to stabilize mood. So it's like, it makes you think of the people you see online doing those like rants on Facebook.
Oh my God, like the status updates or whatever they're called.
Yeah, about
where
all
they're
the people
like,
that have wronged them.
Yes, and, my life is terrible. And
right.
Yeah.
Like you're fishing. Well, that brings us to our next topic, which is the internet, because Mark Feldman in the early 2000s began describing cases informally as Munchausen by internet. So that's not an official diagnosis, but he estimates now that he thinks most cases have now moved online. Because think about it, you don't need medical records, you don't need physical exams, you don't need to be observed by anyone, you just need a story. And one of the most widely cited cases involves a young woman known online as Casey Nicole. Well, it's spelled Kaycee, which is another thing. Like, why did this woman...
Oh, okay.
Let's go with Casey. Yeah, it's a weird spelling, but that was a pseudonym. Her real name was Debbie Swenson, and she was actually in her 40s. But she went online, and this was in the late 1990s through 2001. She presented herself as a high school-aged cancer patient.
Okay. Yeah. Where is this going?
Okay.
Like, why?
So she's in these online communities. And so I didn't know that all of this is taking place on this thing called Metafilter. Have you ever heard of this?
Mm-mm. What year was this again?
This is the late 90s. Early 2000.
So this was like back in the AOL chat room days.
Right, yeah. So she might have been in chat rooms too. But I think that's so I looked online to what this Metafilter is, and it looks like it's basically like early Reddit.
Okay.
It's like the meta and then there's all these like, threads under it for various things. So she embeds herself in these online spaces where people became like really invested in her. Over time, the illness progresses, then it worsens, then it reaches the terminal stage, and then eventually the announcement that she had died.
Did she announce it?
I am now dead. I don't know how I don't know how she pulled that off.
I'm just curious.
But yeah, she announced it. Like we were like, so this whole thing involves what they call sock puppets, which is such a strange term. But basically, people that do this online create other accounts that they call sock puppets. And it's basically like, it makes me think of when the bartender sets out the jar and puts their own dollar in it to be like, hey, look what this person is doing. So like, look how these other people are giving me attention. You too should be giving me this attention.
Okay. Yes.
So that was part of this. So I'm guessing one of her sock puppets announced her death, which was actually her.
Okay, that makes sense.
But this is where things go off the rails, because the announcement's on May 14th. And then the readers start asking questions like, where's the obituary? Where's the funeral held? Why are there no records of her death? So at first it wasn't even skepticism. They were just confused because they wanted to like send flowers and condolences. And they started realizing there was no physical trace of her death anywhere. So I guess the big turning point was someone posted a thread that said, is it possible Casey did not exist? And like,
and then off to the races.
Yeah, amateur sleuths engage. So they just start like comparing timelines, noting contradictions in her medical updates, realizing no one had ever met her in person, and even her online friends, aka sock puppets, they couldn't verify who they were. So people start doing IP tracing.
Oh my God.
I wouldn't even know the first thing about this. But they're
really pissed, aren't they?
Yeah, right? They're like, bitch, I've been like all up in you for years. I guess I would be mad if I got super engaged in something. Not that I would, but if I did.
Who knows? Maybe we would have back then if we were a little bit older.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I was in those chat rooms, but I wasn't talking to,
You weren't in the cancer support. So they narrow it down to a specific geographic area in Kansas, and I guess that's not where she said she was. But then the whole thing blows up when someone identifies or examines an old photo that she had posted. They identify a school mascot in the background. They trace the mascot down to a specific high school. They trace the jersey number down, and they eventually discover the girl in the photos was actually a real student, not named Casey and not ill.
Man, Google image search would have saved a lot of time.
Yeah, that would have worked.
Wow.
It must be harder now to do it, because people can just look up your face if they're ever suspicious. But anyway, so on the 20th, the death is announced on the 14th. On the 20th, she comes up and confesses, which I think takes some balls.
Sure. Well, I'm curious. I wonder what, did she kill herself off because she was exhausted by it? Right. She didn't want to do it anymore? Because it's like, if you're dead, there's no more posting about your treatment. And so I wonder what the reasoning.
Maybe she got nervous that people were going to actually find her. Maybe they thought they were getting close if they were like IP tracing and all this shit.
Well, I mean, not until after, right?
What would you do if you knew you had been caught? Like, I would cancel my internet. Just throw your computer in the trash.
Yep.
Go off the grid.
And just go off the grid.
Yeah. I would not announce. Mm-mm. Yeah, by the way, I was lying.
Nope. No internet. Just don't need it.
Nope, that's it. Yeah, maybe she had gone on to be like, some dude with, I don't know, male pattern baldness, and she was in a whole nother area of the internet, and she didn't want to be bothered with Casey anymore.
Right. Oh yeah. Good point. So she's got a new persona now.
Right. Okay, so here's a closing thought. Factitious disorder forces an uncomfortable realization that attention is not a trivial human need. Neither is care or being seen. Most people meet those needs through connection and relationships, and a small number of people meet them through illness. In rare and severe cases, that pathway becomes so reinforced that it begins to override even basic self-preservation. And that's why this disorder is so difficult to grasp. It's not about deception, it's about need and the lengths human beings will go to meet it, even when it kills them.
Nope.
The mind is strange.
It is fucking strange.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it, strangers. Hope you enjoyed that one. Thanks for tuning in. Go rate us.
Go fucking rate the podcast.
All right. Over and out.
Peace out.